Hello, everybody, and welcome to Reviews That Don't Matter with Jessica Hitt. My name is Jessica Hitt, and on today's episode, we are talking, if you read the title, you know, we are talking about the It movie. Now, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of backstory on me and horror films, thriller genre, all of that stuff. When I was about 6 years old, for some reason my parents thought it was okay, or maybe I just slipped it in myself, not quite sure, but I think my parents said it was okay, that I watched Chucky. And since then, first of all, I've been scarred with creepy dolls, because, man, those are bad. Those are really, really bad, which is also why I will never see Annabelle or Annabelle Creation, never, ever, or any of the Chuckies, no matter how ridiculous they are. And honestly, since then, I've really strayed far from that whole genre of thrillers and scary movies. Obviously, I've seen like comedy scary movies like Scary Movie 3, which is a gem. Quite honestly, I could count on one hand how many horror films I have seen. Disturbia, Paranormal Activity 1, Chucky. I've seen half of The Shining. Do you count Nightmare Before Christmas? Because, I mean, that could be kind of terrifying for some kids. I was obsessed with it, but some kids might find it terrifying. And honestly, it's never really interested me. Like, I don't watch very many, like, horror genre trailers that, like, actually look good. Especially because there are so many out there that are just, like, so generic, and you know, they give you these jump scares that just don't feel earned, and they're cheap, and all of this stuff. And I know there's been a lot of really great horror films that have come out this year with Get Out and Split and some other stuff. And especially in recent years with like The Witch and all of this, there's been like kind of like this resurgence into like really good quality horror films. And with it, I watched the miniseries when I was younger. I was like 15. And so when I was 15, the special effects areas were a lot better than they were when that movie miniseries was made. And so when I watched it, it was so old looking that it was funny to me and not scary. And you know what? I still can't to this day remember if I've seen the entire miniseries or just part of it, because I can only remember a couple scenes, and this movie felt very new to me. And obviously I've never read the book, It. I've never read a Stephen King novel. I don't know if I ever will. So needless to say, I was never really planning on seeing this movie. I saw the trailer and I actually wasn't very impressed at all. I liked the casting because I'm a huge fan of Stranger Things, and Finn Wolfhard's in this, and I kind of like that 80s nostalgia feel. And then I started hearing some early returns of it being very like, just like a scary version of The Goonies, and I love The Goonies. I love Stand By Me. I love those movies about young kids kind of like finding themselves. And so I kind of got a little bit more excited, and then I was just like, I don't know, like, they're hyping this movie up a lot. Like, maybe I should see it. And so I went to the theater today, and I saw it by myself. And yes, you better believe that I had my comfort popcorn, Sour Patch Kids, and a soda, and I might have finished that large popcorn 10 minutes into the movies, and I was a little scared that I didn't have my comfort food. And also, I will mention this too, is like, I never find clowns scary, like ever. I don't quite understand why so many people find clowns scary. And so this has never been something to me that's like, oh God, that's messed up. And I understand that obviously Pennywise turns into your greatest fears, but like my greatest fear is like an empty bank account, so you can't really turn into that very well without being just like, God, that's just stupid. Or it's like, how do you manifest physically as this sort of dread of dying with no purpose? Like, so, like, my fears tend to not be so, like, corporeal. Like, you know, they're not like, I'm afraid of a spider, or I'm afraid of a clown, or, you know, you can't really turn into it, even though I think it'd be really funny to try to see Pennywise turn into an empty bank account. I think that would be real funny. Anyway, I go into this movie knowing a decent amount. I've never obviously read the book, so I don't really know a lot of the story. I don't remember anything from the miniseries, except for some of the adult scenes. Because if you don't know, the book is written in when they're kids, and then 27 years later as adults, and it kind of goes back and forth between the miniseries. I think is very similar to that, where it goes back and forth. It focused solely on the kids when they were children, which I really liked. And I think it was a really smart move for the studio to split it into two movies. essentially 2 movies. There could be a third. I don't know if this is going to be a trilogy or not. I have not read the book, so I have no clue how much more it has to go. And I think it's especially smart because right now, pop culture is going through this weird 80s nostalgic, like, they love everything from the 80s type thing. So it was very smart to kind of capitalize on that. And they did it really well. It did feel like the 80s. I know the book was set in the 50s, and I think it was kind of, I think it was very smart to do 89, I believe is the year. And I love the casting. I really thought every kid in the movie was well casted. They could all act. There wasn't really like a bad kid in the bunch, which sometimes you find that kid that's just like cute, but really isn't that great. There were a couple of the characters that I wish maybe had been a little bit more developed, or maybe gotten a little bit more backstory, or, you know, like the homeschooled kid who they just kind of like randomly decide to save, and then he's like all of a sudden talking about all of this stuff. Like I kind of wished maybe we got a little bit more into him like actually like talking to these people, because before that we didn't know that they knew each other whatsoever. And I really enjoyed how, okay, we're gonna go non-spoiler for a little bit, and then I'll tell you when I'm going to spoilers, because I will accidentally most likely. Anyway, the whole feel of this film was really great. It also, what I will say is, unless you're terrified of clowns, if you're not terrified of clowns, then this movie is it's scary. It's scary, but it's not so scary that like you can't watch it. And also there's not too many like jump scares, which I find most of the time very cheap and like just like kind of unearned. Every single time there was a jump scare in this movie, it felt right. It was definitely a little bit more psychological, and there were some creepy elements where you're like, is this real? Or it's like, why are all these people so creepy? But it's also surprisingly funny. These kids together are, there were times where I was laughing out loud in this theater, like by myself. Like, it was really funny. I think that Finn Wolfhard, you know, I always wondered if the Stranger Things kids could be, you know how like maybe they got that character and that they could only play that character. I was wondering if maybe they would actually be able to branch out and do different things. And Finn Wolfhard, who plays Mike in Stranger Things, he's the main kid, besides Eleven, the one who kisses Eleven at the end of Stranger Things. Spoiler alert for Stranger Things. Anyway, he impressed me quite a bit because he's kind of more of a straight-laced like leader type, and he played this sort of just like goofball, sarcastic asshole, for lack of a better term, really well and very believable. And I love this dynamic of friends, because it felt like a real friend group to me. Even the people that came in new, like it did feel really, really smart and like clever, and like how like I grew up with my friends, super close, and would do anything for them, even crawl into a sewer and almost die. And also what was really fun was that a lot of times there'd be a character on screen and they'd do something and I'd just go, that's so me. And it would just like, it would really just go in between characters and having their like shining moments. I'm like, God, that would be me. I would be the one cracking a joke right here. Or I'd be the one freaking out for contracting AIDS. Like, that would be me. I mean, quite honestly, it is my favorite movie I've seen this year. I love this movie, which is something I never thought I'd say about that movie or a horror movie in general. Like, I want to go see this movie in theaters again. I think it's something that should be experienced in theaters, which isn't something I say a lot about many movies. It's just, there's something really special about this film that I hope people will go out and see. And I mean, they just broke crazy records for September opening. And honestly, for the second part of it, which I'm assuming is going to be 27 years later, and they're adults, and they're coming back to this town, I'm a little sad because I've grown so attached to these young actors playing these characters, but I'm also excited to see who's going to get cast in these roles, how they've developed throughout the years, because they're going to be 40, which is completely different. I'm very, very interested. And maybe we get more flashbacks into them being kids. I don't know if they're going to go completely stray away with that. Like I said, I've never read the book, so I don't know what we're missing so far. One thing I will say is this movie does kind of make me want to see it, but also I kind of want to go into the next movie not knowing anything. So maybe I'll watch the movies and then read the books later. Because I know, obviously, as a Harry Potter fan, I can be very judgmental when reading the books and seeing the movies. They're different. And sometimes it's hard to separate it. I mean, a lot of Game of Thrones fans cannot separate between book and movie and just enjoy both. And I just want to enjoy both. So I'd like to see the movie and then get more in depth and more of a backstory in the book. I think that's what I'll do. And honestly, I'd recommend this to anybody, even people who hate horror movies, because it's not even, I wouldn't even classify it as a horror movie in my opinion, or a thriller, just because it's kind of genre bending in a way. It really is. Like, yes, it's scary. There are scary parts, even when you're not afraid of clowns. This clown's a little scary a little bit. Oh, let me talk about that. Pennywise the clown. I am 50-50 on him, mainly because at times I thought he did well enough to kind of like, let's take one of the first scenes in the movie, which is Georgie going missing, which is the whole plot of this. So if that's a spoiler to you, I'm sorry. Anyway, Georgie's talking to him in the drain, which is in my mind as a kid, I'd been like, no, not happening, see ya. But Georgie's talking to him, and they're having like kind of like pleasant but underlying like creepy tone to it. And then there's this moment that both of them are laughing by something Pennywise was saying, and then it just goes silent, and Pennywise's face just goes to creep mode, basically. And it is chilling. Like, it is chilling. And that's when Georgie's like, yeah, I think I gotta go now. And then, of course, he, gets taken into the drain or whatever, gets taken, disappears. And I thought those moments worked really well, but there were times where, like, I would see Pennywise and he just didn't scare me. And I don't know if that's because I just kind of find this whole clown thing kind of laughable. But, I mean, there were times where I was like, I'd see that and I'd be running down the hall. Like, that would freak me out, the way it was played. And also, there were some times when some of the effects, it didn't look cheap, but some of the effects were so much that it didn't really, like, hit me as much as I felt like it should have. Like the projector scene, while I think it got its point across and I loved parts of it, the very end of it I didn't particularly like. It almost went into this realm of impossibility, even though this is obviously like an impossible film in an impossible world. But it strayed a little bit too much, which is why I like how they also made a villain out of a real person in this movie as well, where there was that threat looming too, where you think he's just a bully, but no, not at all. And you know what? I don't think I'm going to spoil this for you at all. No, not at all. Maybe when I see it a second time, I might do a spoiler review of this. If you guys want, please, I can go more into depth about this movie. Believe me, I will. And in fact, it might, if I see this again, I still feel the same, kind of think about it, because I've only really just saw it a couple hours ago. It might be in my top favorite movies of all time, but it might be too early to say that. It's definitely my favorite movie this year, is what I will say. So I hope you guys liked the review. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Comment down below. What are your thoughts on it? No spoilers in this one, please. Also, don't forget to subscribe. I make videos Monday, Wednesday, Friday. On Friday, we're talking about MTV's Scream. Not the movie, but the TV series. So get excited. Okay, bye.